The Energy Flips series will cover ways to increase energy efficiency and resilience in these challenging times. It is mostly focused on residential and small business consumers since they are at the highest risk of incurring additional costs due to problems with energy availability and of course the increased cost of it. And due to all this situation that currently uncovers on the international scene, I think that it is highly appropriate to find and present ways in which residential and small business consumers can apply various measures, from the simple ones to more complex mitigations, in order to reduce their energy consumption and improve their activity in a context that is quite difficult. I will be covering many ways in which various goals can be achieved. Most of them are not going to be overly technical in their nature, and just as well there needs to be some details that are important to share along this endeavor that so many persons find it important to their activity, and also many businesses. So I will be covering first the present and prospects we have for developments as the basis for the current assumption, and then as we will be moving forward, other more practical ways of considering the current situation, and of course finding ways to mitigate the impact of energy price. Of course, most of them will be covering the goal of reducing energy consumption, but some will be quite interesting because they may also offer opportunities for further developments. In general, the approach is going to be both general and specific. The details that are specific to certain situations are going to be presented as such. Not every measure that is going to be presented will be appropriate for all situations, but they will be giving enough inspiration for ways to adapt. So without further ado, I will be covering the present situation. The war in Ukraine is the most important disrupting factor. As you know all too well, due to Russia's involvement in this conflict, oil and gas exports to the world are being significantly affected. I don't think it matters too much if the war is going to have a positive or a negative outcome for Russia, even if that is important in itself. I think that what matters much more is how much these developments will affect the energy market. And I think that the change is quite important, because no matter if the outcome will be positive or not for Russia, the issue of fossil fuel availability will still be important, because just about every time we hear about oil and gas price, we have to think about countries that are not stable in many ways, and this instability will either lead to fluctuations in the fuel costs or to other regional problems. And all of them create, as a side effect, another impact on the cost of fuel. And this means that the impact is not going to be limited just to the current event. Even if the world's peace is not going to be as much affected by other developments, it's still going to be a major risk. And I think that it's important to find ways to mitigate this potential risk. And it's also important to note that most of the world population already struggles with high energy costs. And this is only going to be amplified due to conflicts and other problems that may appear around the world. And considering these assumptions without even taking into account various issues pertaining to costs, taxation, natural disasters, we still have to contend with the fact that fuel production and delivery is still going to be quite difficult. And of course, the cost that is going to be supported, that is going to be the main struggle of the consumer, is not going to be any less so than it was in the past. So in the context of these amplifying challenges, I think that we should cover quite seriously and consider ways to reduce energy consumption. But most of these should be considering more aspects than just a goal of reducing consumption. So why do we need to reduce energy consumption? The most obvious reason is going to be price, but I don't think that price is the biggest reason, or at least it should not be the biggest reason. Because first of all, while it's true that energy consumption is the most important cost that most of the world population has to bear, I still think that energy consumption shapes very much our society and diverts so many resources in other areas that are not particularly productive. In order to maintain distribution network for any sort of primary energy requires extensive investments, and these investments have to be carried out constantly. And since availability of various chemical elements is not going to be ensured in the future, or at least not in the same context we found it so easy in the last couple of centuries, I think that we have to think about more implications than just the fact that the way in which the energy market is being shaped today has a large impact. But of course, first of all, we need to get over this current struggle, and this is why I think that it's important to consider the impact of consumption and how to reduce it, not only in the sense of mitigating a current issue, but also for the way in which we ensure future developments. Of course, for many persons, it's a real risk of default or having other financial struggles. And there is no denying that this is the basic reason for which we try to find solutions to reduce the impact of high energy prices on our income, on our activities. However, we have to think of energy efficiency as being both a necessity as well as an opportunity. Because the moment we find more creative ways of reducing our dependency on energy, we are going to have additional resources that could be diverted to more productive means, and also they could be helping us have personal or professional development. I think that just about any amount of money that is going to be lost due to the necessary payments for energy is going to be a drag, and we may not be aware enough of how much a drag it is in the current time and will also be in the future. But I think that this is highly important. So the first major important aspect to grasp is that energy consumption is going to have a large impact on what we are able to do today and in the future. So I think that there is a large responsibility, despite all the obvious reasoning for reducing such a high load that bears on our shoulders. It's also the issue of having this opportunity. And I will be presenting ways in which we can tackle these challenges as we move further. In this series, I'm going to cover both solutions for residential as well as small businesses. There may be many instances where some solutions are going to be very easy to apply and some of them are going to be harder. However, the benefits that are going to be visible, to be felt in each and every stage are going to be important. And I think that the most important aspect, first of all, before we try to enter any discussion about what could be done, is to understand, first of all, what we are using energy for. And I think that it's much more important than just committing to a goal such as 20% reduction, 30% reduction, 50% reduction in a specific timeline, to find out, first of all, what amount of energy we really require each and every month. And if we have the opportunity to find out better how we use it for what, and then we can find out ways to improve the way in which we use that energy. So the first important element is that we need to understand the current consumption and the level of comfort we achieve by using this energy. Of course, the discussion is quite different for a residential consumer and for a small business, because in the case of a typical residential consumer, it's more about the comfort they achieve. For a small business, energy consumption may be the only way in which a specific product could be delivered to customers. So the issue is quite different. On the other hand, however, energy is still important, and the amount of energy you require for a specific activity is going to have a large impact on what you can deliver to the others and also what you have available for further improvement. And I think that first of all, being able to track this energy consumption, whether it's electrical energy consumption, it's gas, or any other fuel, heating oil, for instance, that you may be using throughout the year, it's essential to know how much of an impact it bears on your current financial situation. And even if that consumption may not be a real challenge to you, I think that it's important to be aware of your consumption profile, because hopefully, while I'm not expecting the situation to get as bleak as outright limitations on consumption being enforced to customers, I still think that reducing overall the load on the system is going to be helpful both for the current time and for the future. But this requires you to have a good assessment of what you really require to carry on your activity. And this means that you need to have energy bills, and you need to track how much you use in a specific month. If you had this exercise in the past, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to get back to it, because it offers a very strong foundation for any assessments regarding energy consumption and capability. On the other hand, if you did not have such an exercise in the past, now it's a wonderful opportunity to understand how you're using energy and how much financial impact it has. I'm entirely sure that understanding an energy bill is not going to, or an energy statement is not going to be easy for many customers. However, understanding how much of an impact the actual consumption has and other additional costs will have a very good will show a very good perspective on what could be done. And this is the most important exercise you can do before thinking at anything else regarding energy consumption. Know how much you consume in a week, in a month. And if you have past data, you can already think about further steps that you need to carry out. However, if you don't, at least start with the current week. Write down the information you have from various meters you may be using on your premise, and then start to think about what could be done based upon the cost of energy and, of course, various simulations you may have in your mind. But this is the most important aspect. You have to be aware how much energy you consume and how much it has an impact on your current level of comfort or on your current business activity. And if you are aware of these initial details about the current situation, further assessments, suggestions are going to be coming on a very strong foundation. The next video in the series is going to cover more details about how you can organize, how you can have various expectations regarding the prospect of reducing energy consumption and improving efficiency, while other episodes along the way are going to cover specific measures you may carry out. You have to think about that the first such measures are going to be entirely without any cost other than time that will be required for assessments and monitoring, but you can be sure that they will have an impact, and it's not going to be time that is going to be wasted. Hopefully we will find and share more solutions that are going to be as effective as possible. Thank you very much.